There's a moment, almost imperceptible, when the noise of the world begins to dim. Not because anything outside has truly changed, but because something inside you has. The conversations, the traffic, the hum of electronics, all fade to a low, distant hum, like sound trapped behind thick glass. You are here, but the world feels slightly out of reach, as though it has stepped back and left you in a space that belongs entirely to you. It is not a void. It is not absence. It's something stranger, the quiet density of solitude making itself known. At first, you may think it's an accident, a temporary pause before life resumes its usual pace. But the longer you remain in it, the more you realize solitude isn't an interruption, it's a presence. It arrives unannounced, like dusk bleeding into the horizon. No sudden declaration, just an inevitable, slow overtaking. You sit there, sensing the air shift. Every small sound is amplified. The slow creak of the chair beneath you, the faint whistle of wind slipping under a door, the clock's second hand ticking away with relentless precision. You realize how rarely you hear these things in the rhythm of your everyday life. Out there, the world drowns them in a flood of distractions. In here, in this private silence, they are unavoidable. And with the sounds, the thoughts come. Thoughts you've been able to outrun for weeks, months, maybe years. The kind you silence with busy schedules, endless scrolling, and shallow conversations. They emerge now like ghosts, standing patiently in the corners of your mind. Solitude has brought them here, placing them in front of you as if to say, "These belong to you. It's time to look at them." There is an invitation in this moment. It's not loud, it's not urgent, but it is persistent. Solitude extends its hand and offers to show you what exists when no one else is watching, when there's no performance, no role to play. It is an invitation that can both heal and hurt, and it gives you no guarantee which it will be, because solitude is not inherently gentle. It is a mirror without a filter, a truth without the comfort of distraction. Sometimes it reveals beauty, the parts of you that remain untouched by the chaos outside. Other times, it reflects the hollowness you've been avoiding, the fractures you've disguised as strength. You stand at a threshold. Behind you, the familiar noise of life waits, ready to welcome you back into its predictable rhythm. Ahead of you lies a territory unmapped, where the terrain is not always soft underfoot. There are valleys of stillness where your mind can finally rest, and there are deep chasms where it can fall into its own fears. What you find here will not depend on the nature of solitude itself, but on the way you choose to inhabit it. You can treat it as a prison, pacing within its invisible walls, counting the seconds until you can escape, or you can let it become a vast open field, a space with no boundaries where you can finally hear your own voice clearly. The choice is not about whether you accept solitude, because once you've crossed its threshold, you are already inside. The choice is whether you will walk through it blindly, waiting for the noise to return, or open your eyes and see what's been waiting in the silence all along. Solitude is rarely neutral. It tends to lean one way or the other, heavy or light, depending on the state of the person who enters it. To some, it is a suffocating blanket, pressing down on every thought, amplifying the sound of their own insecurities until they feel deafened by them. To others, it is a breath of clean air after years of choking on noise they didn't realize they'd been breathing. The difference lies not in solitude itself, but in what you bring into it. Imagine two travelers arriving at the same empty cabin in the middle of a quiet forest. The first enters carrying years of unresolved grief, disappointment, and self-doubt. In the silence, their mind becomes a cruel echo chamber, every memory bouncing back sharper than before. They feel trapped, not by the cabin, but by the company they've brought, themselves. The second traveler arrives carrying the same memories, but also a willingness to look at them without running away. The stillness becomes a stage, and they allow the long-buried parts of themselves to walk onto it. It hurts, yes, but it also feels like truth. And truth, even when painful, has a strange way of lightening the air. The truth is, solitude has a way of magnifying whatever is already there. If you've been avoiding the weight you carry, the silence will make it heavier. If you've been waiting for space to heal, the silence will make it lighter. This is why some people flee from solitude as though it's a predator. The moment the noise fades, they feel the ground beneath them begin to shift. Their mind begins to pull open drawers they've kept locked for years, spilling out letters they never sent, words they never said, and questions they've been too afraid to ask. In these moments, solitude can feel cruel, even dangerous. But solitude is not here to harm you. It is here to strip away the unnecessary, to take the layers of performance and leave only what is real. And reality, in its raw form, is not always pretty. Sometimes it's jagged, sometimes it's suffocating, but other times it's the only thing that can save you from living a life you no longer recognize as your own. The relief comes later, and it is subtle. One day, you may notice you can sit alone without flinching at the quiet. You can walk through your own thoughts without feeling ambushed. You might even find that the parts of you that once terrified you have softened, as if they were simply waiting for the acknowledgement that only solitude could give them. Solitude is both the weight and the relief, the heavy stone you must carry into the deep woods, and the same stone you finally set down when you've gone far enough. The journey is the same for everyone, but the way you feel its weight, that is yours alone. If this content makes sense to you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you. When you are alone long enough, something begins to happen. At first, you think it's just boredom or restlessness. You pace, you scroll through your phone, you look for something, anything, to distract yourself, but then the distractions lose their flavor. The screen feels dull, the noise from outside seems distant, and in that strange quiet, you begin to feel watched. Not by someone else, but by yourself. Solitude, when it deepens, becomes a mirror without mercy. It doesn't show the version of you that you present to the world, carefully lit, rehearsed, filtered. It shows you as you are. The face you make when no one's watching, the posture you have when you stop pretending, the words you never say out loud, but repeat to yourself in the dark. This mirror is not interested in your excuses. It will not be fooled by your social charm, your curated success, or the little lies you tell to keep the peace. It will hold your gaze until you either look away or admit what you see. And what you see may not always be flattering. You might notice the small ways you've betrayed yourself, the dreams you buried under practical choices, the resentment you've been carrying toward people you love because you never found the courage to speak. That's why most people keep the lights on and the noise up. They avoid this mirror at all costs because they know, deep down, that once they look into it, they won't be able to unsee the truth. And truth demands change. Yet there is another side to this. If you can stand before that mirror without running, without hiding, something shifts. The shame begins to loosen its grip. The self you've been afraid to face starts to feel less like an enemy and more like an old friend you've neglected. You realize that the flaws you see are not the sum of who you are. They are the starting point of who you could become. But here's the paradox. You cannot reach this clarity without first feeling the discomfort. You must be willing to let the mirror show you the cracks before you can fill them with gold. And that requires patience, courage, and the acceptance that solitude is not always gentle, but it is always honest. Most people think solitude is simply the absence of people. They imagine it as a quiet room, a silent park, a few hours without interruptions. But real solitude is more than the space you carve out. It's what happens inside you when that space is left unfilled. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You notice the little habits you use to escape yourself, Checking your phone every few minutes, making mental to-do lists, replaying old conversations. These are survival mechanisms for a mind that has forgotten how to just be. And when you take them away, you meet the raw presence of your own thoughts. This is the crucible where transformation begins. It's not glamorous, and it's not the version of solitude you see in films, the artist staring pensively at the sea, the monk meditating in perfect stillness. Real transformation is often messy. It's confronting the thoughts you've avoided for years. It's realizing that some of your goals aren't truly yours, that much of your life has been shaped by invisible agreements you never actually signed. Solitude strips away the audience. Without anyone watching, the performance ends. You stop acting out the version of yourself you've been taught to be, and you start to feel the stirrings of something else. Your own voice. Faint but insistent. And here's the beauty. The longer you sit with it, the stronger that voice becomes. You start to see patterns in your behavior, connections between your fears and your choices. You see how you've been carrying certain beliefs like chains, and for the first time, you imagine what it might feel like to set them down. Transformation through solitude doesn't happen all at once. It's more like erosion, small shifts that, over time, carve out a new shape. One day you wake up and realize you're no longer desperate for constant approval. The noise of the world doesn't stick to you the same way. You make decisions without the old fear gripping your chest. This is the gift solitude offers when you don't run from it. The chance to rebuild yourself from the inside out, not as the person the world told you to be, but as the one you were meant to become. Coming back is harder than most people imagine. After you've tasted the pure quiet of solitude, every sound in the outside world feels louder than it should. Conversations seem cluttered with unnecessary words. People speak before thinking, fill silences to avoid discomfort, and rush from one interaction to the next without ever touching the core of anything. It can be tempting to step back into that noise with your guard up, determined to protect your peace by keeping everyone at arm's length. But if solitude has truly done its work, you don't need the wall anymore. You become your own wall, not in the sense of being closed off, but in the sense of knowing that nothing outside can dismantle you without your permission. The real challenge isn't in avoiding the world, it's in re-entering it without letting it strip you of what you found. The pace of society will try to reclaim you. Old patterns will resurface. You may find yourself tempted to slip into the same habits you had before, agreeing to things you don't want, laughing at jokes you don't find funny, shaping yourself to fit the moods of others. This is where you must remember solitude gave you a blueprint. You now know what it feels like to live according to your own rhythm, to choose silence without shame, to honor your inner voice above all others. The task is to carry that inner rhythm back into the noise, to move through the crowd without losing the sense of open space inside you. You might discover that you interact differently now. You listen more slowly. You answer less impulsively. You no longer feel the need to fill the air with explanations. Sometimes you'll speak less than before, but when you do speak, your words will land heavier. People will notice the difference, even if they can't name it. And here's the paradox. You may also find that, in returning, you connect more deeply than you ever did before you left. Because now, you're not connecting to escape loneliness or to confirm your worth. You're connecting because you want to, because you have something worth sharing. And that, more than anything, changes the quality of your relationships. You will lose some people. Solitude often rearranges your circles. The ones who fed on your constant availability won't understand why you no longer answer instantly. The ones who were only comfortable with the version of you that bent to their will feel threatened by your boundaries. Let them go. That's not loss. It's alignment. Returning isn't about resuming your old life. It's about creating a new one that fits the person you became in the quiet. That might mean smaller circles, slower schedules, fewer commitments, not because you're afraid of the world, but because you now understand that life is too short to spend on things that hollow you out. When you return on your own terms, you bring the silence with you. You become the calm in the room, the still point in the chaos, and people who are ready for that will meet you there. That's the final gift of solitude, not the escape itself, but the ability to carry your freedom into any place, any conversation, any life you choose to live. Because once you've learned that your inner space belongs only to you, no one and nothing can take it away.